Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity. I've learned the first time last week that they had a concert here and they spoke about a microphone drop. I don't know whether you've seen it. Now, if you watch the guys in the back, and they say if you drop the mic, all important people drop the mic. So I'll just put it down softly there and I'll give the guys a heart attack. Very interesting, when John and Ruan spoke, I don't know what they prepared and they don't know what I prepared. And yet there are going to be some points that we have to repeat, that I'm going to repeat, that I believe I can leave it out, but I think there are some points that the Lord certainly wants me to hear today more than once. A very important day this morning in my quiet time. I opened my daily devotionals and I read the Bible and I saw some notes. Today, an important day. 1985, today, 32 years ago, I landed as a young man in Zurich, and it was my first step in representing FONAC in Southern Africa. And I arrived there 25 to 12 in the morning. We still flew around the bulge of Africa to get to Zurich. Today, 32 years ago. In 2012, we threw these classrooms at the back here, we threw this foundations today. In 2013, we threw and poured the concrete of that top floor of the school. And 2 years ago today, we again had our 30-year celebrations. And last year, we signed on this day the contract with Servest to start building on our sports fields. Why am I sharing this? It's interesting that over the years, as I keep these notes, and I want to encourage the younger members you're never too old to make notes, to make notes and work through those notes. I always say to people, you can have a journal, but you never go back in the journal. So I have a daily devotional that's in a journal form, and I make these notes, not every day. I make them now and again. It's not every day there's a wow day like today, but you make the notes, you look at them, and you start seeing God's pattern in your life. What does it do? Wow, it encourages one. And you look back and you say, God, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's on the day that I was baptized in the primary school in the baptismal font, and I had to take a spiritual stand. And on that day in 2007, the 20th of May, God gave me a verse that later, years later, that I look back, where he said, I will break down the city gates. And I'm going to speak about that a little bit later. And only later then you look back and you see, wow, look what God has done. And it reminds you of his goodness in your life. But we have to talk about courage. And together, as John has said, courage. What goes together with courage is fear. On the other side, but trust and faith. And this is probably the 4 words that I've struggled with the most in my life, of which fear is the biggest one. And if we look at fear, and I think back about fear in my own life, it was a struggle. And yet fear is like a mirage. It's there, it's real, it's big, you see it. And as you walk in courage and you get closer to it, it starts disappearing and it's not there. But yet when you saw it, it was real and it was frightening and you actually wanted to run away. But fear also produces anxiety and indecisiveness that results in stagnation, procrastination, and at the end of the day blocks God's purpose for us. It creates doubt. It even leads to destructive habits. As we are under pressure, as we struggle with these fears, we go home and we have an extra whiskey, or 2, or 3, or we take a little pill. Now, as a pharmacist, I'm not against pills, but I just want to mention that there's also a limit to what you can take, especially with alcohol. It steals our joy and our contentment, and we plan to get away, and we see that, and I'm not saying that everybody that immigrates is out of fear. Not at all, because God uses South Africans all over the world. But be careful that when you do leave. A few weeks ago I was with my grandson in Perth. He wants to enroll in YWAM, and I walked around Perth, and first of all I didn't know that Perth was next to a river. The Swan, I thought it was on the sea, so it was rather a surprise to me. And I said to my grandson, I can understand that people immigrate to Perth, but as long as God wants you there. And I was there 2 days, and I said, you know what? Oh, I miss these damn taxis. Oh, this is so boring. Everybody's doing 110 on the highway. Who wants to live here? We want excitement, man. If I greet my wife in the morning and I leave for the office, I said, Lovey, I might not even see you again tonight. But at least, remember when I went to Zurich, and those of you that's been on Zurich Airport, and I've been there a number of times, it's a very, very nice airport and very quiet. You walk around there, there's not a sound. And my Swiss friend, Rolf Frischnach, we came from Zimbabwe, and we were working on a project for him there. And as we walked out of the immigration, I mean, it's this music and the boom, 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 boom. And there's drones flying around, and there's little bears going tuck, 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 tuck on the road, and you've got to duck. And as I turned around and I wanted to say for him, I'm sorry for all the noise. He said to me, yeah, there is life. And it changed my whole thinking about our country, what we stand for, and the job that we have. So courage goes together with faith. Trusting in or relying on or clinging to. Some people trust in the government. I have not met many, but anyway. Some people trust in their money. Don't forget Proverbs 11:28. Trust in your money and down you go. People, spouse, friend, some guys car, but of course there's only one certainty, and that's trusting in God, and I will share some examples with you later. But God mixes faith with the tangible. What do you have in your hand? God said to Moses, what do you have in your hand? He only had a staff. What do you have in your hand? I have sat many months waiting for God to supply the money. And he said, what do you have in your hand? But we all lack faith. Unfortunately, we all lack faith. And the question is, and I hear somebody say, but how do I get faith? Well, John gave the answer. You have to pray. It's amazing. The more you pray, the more faith you get, the more wisdom you get, because James 1:5 says, ask him if you need wisdom and he will give it to you. Ask him. But when, this is the important part, but when he gives it to you, you have to obey. This is where the courage comes in. You have to do. You have to not then doubt, because if you doubt, the one translation says, and such a man will be unstable in all his ways. So if you ask, just do it. Just do it. It's interesting that God prepared the way for certain things to happen at the Eduplex more than 35 years ago, before he even gave me the vision, before we even laid one brick on the other, before I even knew about the name Eduplex. And it was a Mrs. Ramagopa that had 8 children in the height of apartheid, no husband, and people, white people, brought them food, and white people brought them clothes and sent them to school. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But at the same time, Satan was also at work. And I started going, just when we started with Phonic, I started going getting involved in an emotional relationship with one of my staff. And when I look back today, I realize I would not have been standing here had I continued with that relationship, because that's for sure not from God. And what a pity that I would not have known had I continued with that nonsense, because that at the end of the day is what it is. I would not have known what I would have missed. So it's important, and we've heard what John has said, walking in integrity. Folks, it ain't easy, but it's worth it. It took a lot of tears, a lot of heartbreak for us, my wife and I, to really get back onto the road. And you know that they say it's that 7, I don't know what they say it in English, it's not a 7 sakke sout, 7 bags of salt. I remember my wife had 6 bags and I had 1 bag, and that was a tough one. But at least if we look back today, and I see the role that she's playing. Today she's 70 and she's 4 years older than me. People always say, wow, you've got such a young wife. I said, yes, but you know, it's 4 years older than me, and she's has a full day at work, full day at the office. When she gets home at night, I say, wow, Lord, what a blessing. What a blessing. But let me get to the school, because we're going to go through the school in a little while. 1992, we sponsored the get-together of a number of schools for the deaf across the colour line, if you can call it that, 2 years before apartheid was demolished, at the Kruger Park. And it was principals of schools for the deaf, and they got together, and I realized that traditional deaf education is in a shambles. Children spend 14, 15, 16 years sometimes at school. They leave school. They can't speak. If you can't speak, you can't. If you can't hear, you can't speak. If you can't speak, you can't read. So they have very limited job opportunities. We had this conference. I was a little bit depressed, and about 2 weeks later, I had my quiet time, and I said, Lord, okay, what about this now? Is the conference now over and done, and that's it? And I clearly heard the Holy Spirit say to me, I want you to make a difference in deaf education. I was so excited. We were going to make a fortune. I immediately formed a foundation for children with a hearing loss. I saw how we're going to sell hearing aids to every school, every child, everybody throughout Africa, never mind South Africa, because this is amazing. I even flew to the World Bank in Washington and showed them the whole idea of the foundation. Everybody said, this is fantastic. Nobody gave a cent. Took me 6 years for the Lord to change my thinking. You're not going to make money. It's going to cost you time, talent, and treasure. And had somebody said to me in 1992, when God gives you a vision and you have the courage to take it and walk with it, notwithstanding the cost, He will do the impossible. You will, van der Merwe, build 3 schools, not just one. And I'd say, no, wait a minute, a school, that stage I didn't even know about a school. Wait. No, you don't understand, I'm a businessman. I hated school, hated it. I spent as little time at school as possible. I was playing snooker in the Hellenic Hotel, for those of you in Church Street that it was. And I hated university, even more. There I only spent 1 or 2 days a week at university. And when you will build these schools, and I will send you people from throughout the world to bring you millions of rands. No, millions of dollars. I said, impossible. And that's exactly what happened. But God shields you when He gives you a vision. He shields you and does not give you all the information because it's too much to handle. 5 years and I knew about education less than zero. And He sent me a retired principal of a school for the deaf in the UK. She was a Scottish lady, Dr. Morag Clark, and she came and she criticized once again and said, you want to start at the wrong end with this vision of yours. I said, but I want to start with the children. Where should I start? She said, no, you have to start with the professionals, because you see today, with today's modern technology, hearing aids and cochlear implants, every deaf child can hear. But the reason why they speak so funny is because they are being taught language, and language is caught, not taught. And it's as if a light bulb went on above my head. By that time I was rather miserable, and I said, now will you help me? I mean, everybody criticized, not everybody helps. She said, sure, I'll help you. I said, where should we start? She said, let's have a course for professionals. The beginning of next year, this was about August, September, and the next year, 1998, let's have a course for professionals, and we start that way. Well, here was a vision of God. I am going to rent, first of all, the City Hall, because we are going to have professionals come from all over the country to come and listen to this and start participating in the vision of God. 6 people arrived. I was so disappointed. That morning that the course started, I said, Lord, in my quiet time, said, I'm sorry, but I'm very disappointed. This is your vision. It's not my vision. It's your vision. And only 6 people arrive. How is that possible? And the Holy Spirit said, read Zechariah 4, verse 10. That says, do not despise this small beginning, for the eyes of the Lord rejoice to see the work begin. And I said, Lord, isn't this amazing? The eyes of the Lord rejoice to see the work begin. How often do we despise a small beginning? I've heard the other day a church that started by preparing a bowl of soup. That's how they started, serving people. And as I read that passage, my eyes fell on verse 6 that says, you will succeed, but not through might nor through power, but through my Spirit. I went to that course. To cut a long story short, we had it. 6 schools, 5 of the 6 schools disappeared, 1 school left. We started working there, and in 2000 I wanted to sell my business. When do you want to sell your business? When things are going well? No, when there's pressure. You need money. And you think, well, maybe I can go and retire. But God decided, well, Van der Merwe, I better keep you busy, because you see, you have a bit of a reputation. You like the girls like Ruan. I've never taken them by the ears and kissed them on the mouth, but that's a new one to me. And there the idea of our own training facility started getting shape. Eventually, the people that I've been speaking to over the years about the vision said, 2 of my friends in Switzerland said, but we will help you. And my brother and I will give you 1 million francs each, which at that stage was 4 million rand for 1 million francs. The good old days. That was 8 million rand. The rand devalued in 2001, and the 8 million became 12 million, and we built the preschool. How we found the ground, remember I have to sell my book as well, so how we found the ground you have to read in the book. 2.4 hectares. The primary school and the preschool, you'll see it a bit later. We bought the ground, we built the school, and I was about to sit back and relax and say, but wait a minute, I've now done what I think the Lord said I should do, and I'm ready to feather my nest. And the parents of the normal hearing children, we're a normal hearing school, and we include a few deaf children in every class. So at the moment we have 800 children in the school, and we have 75 deaf children, and we include them with the normal hearing children. We teach them normal spoken language. Okay. The parents of the deaf children, of the normal hearing children, said, what about a primary school? And I said, well, I don't have the money. But I'm on my way to Zurich, and I still remember saying to them, God works in the hearts of kings. He directs their thoughts like water in a furrow. They gave money for the next 10 classes, actually 6 classes of the primary school, and we could then actually build 10 classes with the money they gave, under-promising and over-delivering. But very interesting, God knew my faith was not big enough to start anything if I didn't have the money. I would not put 2 bricks on top of one another if I didn't have the money. So he provided the money for the preschool, and he provided the money for the first classes of the primary school. But he was ready to take me to the next level. I just didn't know it. And how does God get your attention? Very easy. We were ready to then finish in 2006 to finish the primary school. The admin, you'll see the hall, you'll see we're going to walk through it. And the same people that gave the money for the preschool and for the primary school first few classes promised the money for the completion of our primary school. And I remember standing one Tuesday afternoon looking at the concrete being poured into the foundations when my cell phone rang. I said, hello, and they said, oh, this is so-and-so. I believe a church is using your facilities. And I said, yes, I mean, you know that from the beginning. Sponsor said, that's unacceptable. You stop it, we are also Christians. You stop that and we'll pay for everything, but the church must go. It felt as if you pulled a mat under my feet, because at the same time we were building the Ear Institute, and here we are busy with a 35 million rand building project between the two, and they say we're stopping the money. That's the quickest God gets your attention, when he stops the money. Because where does he want you? On your knees. Where does he meet you? On your knees. When do you ask for wisdom, for insight, for direction? In your panic mode is on your knees. And that's exactly where he wanted me. The next morning I called an urgent board meeting. Next morning, before the board, I had my quiet time. The Lord took me to Zechariah that says, you've listened long enough. Get on with the job and finish it. My one daily devotional from Oz Hillman, today God has first spoken, said that you have to, God's looking for somebody standing in the gap. And I said, wow, we can't stand in the gap, we don't have the money. I heard the Holy Spirit say to me, but I'm not talking about the money. It's not about the money, it's somebody that will take the responsibility of spiritually standing in the gap. I said, Lord, sorry, you have to wait a little bit. I have to first speak to my wife and my family, because I have an idea this is going to cost us more than what we realized. Spoke to them, they said, that's fine. The board was very excited. Of course, it doesn't cost them a cent, like most boards. And they said, go for it, man, thank you very much, that's great. And we continued, and God blessed our company so that we could borrow 15 million rand and repay and service that debt, not repay, service the debt, and continue with the building. The testimony of the builders are that when you in the construction company, that 2 days after they give the bill, we paid them. And that's the way the Lord started to provide. 2 months later, I was in a rather low. Satan attacking one and saying, yeah, this you're not going to make. This is fine, but you ain't going to make it. Came on a Thursday evening, I went, just before I left home, I got an email from Maura Clark, my advisor, holidaying in Scotland. And she said, you know, this is unacceptable that the guys I've just sent out and said finally the donors have withdrawn. She said, it's not acceptable, but I really feel you should read Revelation 3 verse 8. My first reaction is, sorry, but who reads Revelation when you're on holiday? That's a tough one. The next morning I walk into my office. My friend Gerrit is having, he's holidaying also a board member, holidaying in Mexico. And he said, my brother, this is unacceptable. I feel the Holy Spirit says you should read Revelation 3 verse 8. That got my attention. And Revelation 3 verse 8 says, I know you well. You are not strong. Wow. I just burst out in tears and I said, God, thank you that I don't have to be something that I'm not. You know I'm not strong. And then it continues and says, I know you well, you are not strong, but you have tried to obey. It's an amazing verse because none of us can obey, but we are trying and God sees it. And then it says, but you have not denied my name. And this is the crux for us as businessmen, business people, just not to deny God's name. We will fall, we will stumble, we will crawl, eventually we will go up, but we will not deny God's name. And then it says, and therefore I've put before you an open door that no man can shut. And you'll see the open doors. I grabbed that promise for myself and then eventually said, but wait a minute, I have to share this with our children and with our staff and with our parents, with the community, because I realized God puts an open door before each one of us. But it's up to us to walk through it in faith while trembling in fear, because fear is always there. Or we turn away in fear and forget about the faith. And every time we walk through those open doors, I'm reminded of God's goodness. I am reminded this is not my vision. This is God's vision. We have a responsibility to do the very best we can every day for our children and our community. It's interesting that God then sent us in 2009, the board challenged me in August and said, but what about the future? And when that person said it, and you probably know him, Francois van Niekerk, he's on our board, and when he said, what about the future? I knew this was a question that I had to answer. But my first reaction was, I'm so tired of just battling to get this flippin' school going, this primary school, the money, and now you ask me about the future. I mean, please, hello? And I said, okay, I'll arrange a meeting. And the latest in the year that I could arrange the meeting for the advisors to get together and our principals were the 25th of November 2009. The amazing thing that happened early in September, you'll have to read about a guy that I met in Zurich, and I went to my friend who was a supporter of the school, a Swiss banker. We'll get to the story about the Swiss money in a moment. And went to him and we had We sat at the farm earlier that year in 2009 around the fire, and I had a cigar. Remember, Spurgeon also smoked cigars and pipe. So I had a cigar and I had a whiskey with him, and we were talking. He was telling me about his wealthy clients. And he said 95% of his very wealthy clients are exceptionally unhappy. And of course, I saw the opening. I said, if they are looking for a project, boy, do we have a project for them. We have an amazing school. We have deaf children. We have bursary children and so on. And I could see we've just ruined the friendship. You remember the lunch bar one. Because he's there to preserve wealth, not to give it away. But he said, I'll think about it. He left in the middle of the year. He wrote to me and he said, I might have an American client, hello, red light, American client, Swiss bank account, but the money of the unrighteous will go to the righteous. And he sponsored 3 children from South Africa in America, right through the schooling and through a university, and one of them was the nephew of Mr. Mandela. And he said that he's looking for a project. Said, okay, I'll send some information through. Nothing happened. Nico and my wife and I, Anita, went to Switzerland the beginning of September, and we went to a conference, and I said to Nico, let's go and have a coffee at Kurt's place. Now, to have a coffee at the Swiss bank is always very nice. The coffee is great, the chocolate is great, and the ladies that bring the coffee is even better. They know how to work one there. It's not just, anyway, let me not digress. And he said to me, have you heard from my friend that's interested in sponsor? I said, no, nothing. He said, well, he's here and I can set up, he's in Zurich and I can set up a meeting on Monday. I said, wait a minute, I'm actually here on a conference, but it's okay, I'll change my schedule. Saturday morning, Anita and I sit in bed praying, and we prayed about the meeting, and Anita said, Lord, we always pray for favor in the eyes of man. But I ask that you would give Nico favor on Monday in your eyes. I thought, that's a strange one. That weekend I thought, should I just say to this guy Monday morning, I had a vision, instead of saying God gave me the vision, because I'm so ridiculed and I'm so tired of people criticizing when I say God gave me the vision. And I heard the Holy Spirit say yes. Then you might have favor in the eyes of man, but you will not have favor in God's eyes. And I said, I'm going to say it the way it is. We arrived 9 o'clock at the bank, had a coffee with Kurt. The American was 10 minutes late. Remember in my book, you can never be too early, and if you're on time, you're late. But anyway, he arrived 10 minutes late. Kurt left and he sat and he looked at the wall, and I was sitting there and he said, tell me about your story. And I explained to him that God gave me this vision, and I was 2 minutes down the line. He said, how much do you need? And I'm ducking and diving all around the money, and I say, well, we need partners, and we need this, and we need that. He said, what do you need? I said, well, we have at that stage, we had quite a number, about 20 odd children on bursaries, because of the 75 children that we have now, nearly 50% of reliant on bursaries from squatter camps and so on, the children. I said, and we're running at a loss of 1.5 million rand a year. He said, is that what you need? I thought, okay, goodbye, 1.5 million. I said, no. He says, what do you need? Give it to me straight. He said, okay, when we built the school, the church withdrew, and we had to borrow 15 million rand. So he said, now your family doesn't have any money. I said, yes. He said, I'll give you 700,000 euros. At that stage was 7.65 million rand. And he leant over the table like this, and he said, I don't trust non-religious people or non-religious projects. Goodbye. And the next day, the money was in the bank. Yes, the Swiss bank, you're right. Had I denied God, I would never have known what it would have cost me. But God used Bob. You'll see his board is on there. God used Bob to encourage me for the next level that he's coming to. Because had he not encouraged me, I would have said, and he said, 25th of November, I want you to build a second campus. Had the Lord not, this whole idea with Bob and this whole experience been fresh in my memory, I would have said, whoa, no ways. I mean, we still owe money. There's no ways we're going to do that. And yet the 25th of November, the Lord said, this is now the meeting today, and in my quiet time I said, Lord, let me just look through Proverbs. Is it really fine to plan? I looked through everything, all the planning that I marked in Proverbs. I said, I just want to check, Lord, because actually I don't feel like doing this one. And I looked through and I didn't know what God prepared. And then I went back and I looked at Zechariah 4 verse 6. Not through might nor through power, but through my spirit. And I thought, this is very interesting. And then I said, well, Lord, show me now what I must do. Remember, I pray first and then we read. And I picked up Spurgeon's Checkbook of Faith. And I said to the Lord beforehand, Lord, whatever we need to do with the second campus, the money is like a mountain in front of me. I don't know how we're going to get over this one. Interesting how we doubt. God provides and provides, and yet we get to a day we said, well, I think, Lord, you've now stopped providing and now it's up to me. Doesn't work that way. And I picked up Spurgeon's Checkbook of Faith of the 25th of November, and it says, it quoted from Zechariah 4 verse 7. And the mountain in front of Zerubbabel will become a plain. I thought, didn't I just read this? And Spurgeon says at this moment the mountain is in front of you and you see no way over it, through it, or around it. Let faith come in and the mountain will become a plain. But let faith first hear the words of the Lord, not through might nor through power, but through my spirit. Wow, Lord, amazing. Then I took Os Hillman's Today God is First. He quotes from the prayer of Jabez, enlarging your territory. I said, but if I tell you this, I go cold. Enlarging your territory. God, but I've just prayed about this. What happened? He said that the Lord will enlarge your territory, but be sure that you use it for His glory. Be sure that you use it for His glory. I had to recheck my own ego, my own need to want to go bigger and bigger and bigger. I said, Lord, but there's one little thing. What must I do? He said, I heard a high school, a sports center, a university, a training. I said, whoa. No, you don't, sorry, but you don't understand. My wife said, remember, happy wife, happy life. My wife said, you will not build a high school and you will build it over my dead body unless God writes in big letters against the wall that you are to do it. Turn back 3 weeks. Anita went to Chicago to a conference with 2 of her staff. One of the guys is, when I said, oh, remember to go to the library. I love visiting libraries. Chicago is the 3rd largest library in the world. And I said, forget the books, go to the 7th floor, look at the structure. This is an amazing steel and glass structure. Don't forget to go there. They came back and I said, did you see the structure? Did you go to the library? Yes. Did you see the roof? No. What happened? No. We were walking along and Jan's back started hurting. And he said, can I just sit a little bit? And we saw the story of Chicago, a movie, and said, why don't we go and sit in the movie and then we all take a break? And they watched. Daniel Byrne was the architect that could redesign the whole of Chicago. And the last words, and he told his story, and the last words on the screen was never make little plans. They have no power to stir the blood of people. And when I got to Anita and I said, but I think the Lord's leading me to build a high school and a sports center, she says, don't make little plans. Now for my wife to say that is a miracle. Because she always says, no, wait a minute, be careful, and sort of just puts the brakes on. We don't unfortunately have time to tell you the whole story, but I just want to say a few months later, we're sitting in April 2010, sitting in Germany having a holiday, and I'm praying about the school, and I said, Lord, I don't understand. Now, I don't know how many months down the line, 5-6 months down the line, no money has arrived. I don't understand. Took me to Isaiah 45 verse 1-3. It says, I will open the door before you, reminding me of the open doors. I will flatten the mountain before you, reminding me of the verse of the 25th of November the previous year. And I will break down the city gates. And when I read that, I knew it's the sports grounds. And as you look through these, you can't see it, but we're going to just walk past there. That's the 9.4 hectares that belongs to the city council for our sports grounds, because we have no sports grounds. I will break down the city gates. And everybody said, the city council, ANC city council, donate 9.4 hectares in the middle of Pretoria. You smoking something? There's no ways. There's no ways. Yes, the best you can do is a 25-year lease. Forget even a 99, but you can't spend money on a 25-year lease. It goes like that. I said, on the grounds of this, I'm going to apply for the donation of the ground. I'll come back to this. And then it says, the verse 3 says, and I will give you the dark treasures hidden in secret places. And when I read that, I knew it was Swiss money. I just didn't know at that stage it was my Swiss money. So I came back and we came back and we still waited until one day the Lord said, but I cannot do anything through unbelief. And if you don't start, it'll be an act of unbelief. If you don't start, it'll be an act of unbelief. And in my zeal, I arranged at the primary school on the rugby field, immediately phoned the architect, said, plan a high school on the grounds at the rugby field next to the primary school. And the people said, but where are the primary school children going to play? I said, that's a detail. Don't bother me with details. I'm not into details. I'm in the big picture. Go for it. Well, it cost me dearly. We had the plans approved, drawn up, approved in record time at the city council. We moved services across the rugby field over an Easter weekend, cost me R1 million. And the money didn't come. Because God's vision is much bigger than what my vision could ever be. At the end of the day, we had to build 100 meters further. It's probably one of the most costly 100 meters that there is in Pretoria. 100 meters further. And in 2011, we started with a high school. And as you walk out here, you'll look towards your right, you'll see my faith. Right on the other side, you'll see a little house. We changed the high school and said, well, if we're going to have the high school, then let's go as small as possible because this is with our money. And we're going to build only 4 classrooms. And then the Lord said, but you know what, I can't trust you. I said, Lord, the money's not coming, but you say you can't trust me with the money. I mean, look what we've done. I was so angry. Look what we've done. We have built, it's cost our family millions. Now you say you can't trust me with the money. I heard the Holy Spirit say, it's not the money. It's never been about the money. I can't trust you with a vision. Yeah, I will never forget that morning. said, you can't trust me with a vision. Why not? He says, the vision is in your head. I want it in your heart. I said, 20 years down the line. I went to the room, and Anita has a quiet time in the room. I said, I don't understand this. How is it possible? She said, today is a happy day in our house. I said, excuse me? She said, I've known this for years. I said, but why do you only tell me now? She said, time is not right. This is the right time. I said, but what does the Lord mean? I don't understand it. She said, let me tell you. For you, the buildings are more important than the children. For God, the children are more important than the buildings. We have to rethink. We have to replan. We have to reprioritize. And then I realized, but I write in my first book, I don't believe in retirement. What the heck are we saving for in Switzerland? Let's bring in the money. And we built those classes with the red bricks that you see on that side. And as we built those, God started breaking open, working in other people's hearts, and started giving money and donating money for the rest of the school. I want to close with a quick story, 2 stories if I may. I started with Mrs. Ramagopa. Then decided, well, we have to now make a plan with this ground. How am I going to get 9.4 hectares? I am going to invite the mayor of Pretoria, Mr. Ramagopa, to the school. And I arranged 5 of our bursary deaf children living in squatter camps with their parents to come and tell the mayor what the Eduplex means to them. We were still building on that side. So we arrived at the preschool. He said, we told him what we do in the school, everything else concerned, and he said, I saw something upset him terribly. And he just looked in front of him, and I thought, I hope I didn't make a little racist remark or something. And, you know, sometimes I have a warped sense of humor. And we went through the school, and at the primary school, I said, well, can we drive around and let me show you the sports field? We had a tent in the dust there in the field in the middle of winter. I had even a guy to clean his shoes. And because if he goes back to the office, you have to impress these guys. You have to think of the details, even if you don't like it. Eventually, we took him there. I showed him the plans and everything we planned, but I could see his heart wasn't in it. And he said, "Are you finished? Can I see you in private?" And he walked around the tent. Behind the tent were 2 portable toilets, and he started crying. He cried so much that he eventually went between these toilets, and he turned around and said, "It's because of people like you." And then he continued crying 5 times. Eventually he came out. I hugged him. I cried with him. I didn't know what we were crying about, but we had a good cry. And he said, "Can I tell you my story? My mother is illiterate. She had 8 children. People like you brought us food. People like you brought us clothes. And people like you sent us to school and to university. We have 8 postgraduate degrees between 8 children. In fact, my one sister is the vice president of the Citibank of New York. Because of people like you, today is payback time. I will bring in 1 month my whole executive, and they came, and you have to give them the story. They arrived a month later on the day that they had the riots in Marabastad. You can probably remember those days. They had huge riots in Marabastad, and I was very concerned about. They spent 3 hours at the school, including lunch, and he said, "Give them this story as you told me." I said, "But what about the riots?" He said, "The people will always riot. This is the future." I took them through, I organized the bus, and as we drove through to the sports grounds, the same tent, the same thing, the same guy cleaning the shoes. Jan got off the bus and he said, "I sat next to the MEC for housing." And he said, "This ground is earmarked for low-cost housing." When Jan said to me, my stomach made a knot. And I thought, let me just stay focused. I told him the whole story. We got back in the bus and I saw myself walking to the front of the bus, picked up the microphone and said, you're probably wondering why this ground is not suitable for for living dwellings and mass housing. And I thought, what the hell are you saying now? You are now just putting their minds that they think differently. And I said, do you see? And on the other side is the Bosel factory. I said, that's a steel factory manufacturing on the other side of the railway line, manufacturing Bosel exhausts. And their steel presses go night and day, boom, 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 boom. And before I could finish my story, the mayor grabbed the microphone out of my hand and said, we've been trying since 1994 to get rid of this facility. We can't. This place is unsuitable for human habitation. And 3 months later, the whole executive, the city council, the whole whatever they call it, donated the ground to us. I have to end, but I want to end with Annabeth. Annabeth is an 8-year-old girl in our school. 2 years ago, she was 8 years old. We now have the sports grounds, and I'm wondering where the money's going to come from. And Annabeth came April 2 years ago, and she said she wanted to see me. I came to Annabeth and she said, Nico, the Holy Spirit said that I should give my birthday money to you for the development of the sports grounds. Here is 100 rand. I took the 100 rand and I said, thank you very much, but in my heart I said, Lord, I don't need 100, I need 100 million. And I forgot about Annabeth's 100 rand. Last year, May, I went to Switzerland. My friend Kurt at the bank, he's still a friend of mine, although I have no more money there. And Kurt and I went on a Porsche safari. And I contacted my friend Andy Rees. He's the owner of BMC Cycling, and he used to be one of the founders of Phonak. And I said, Andy, in the year before he was here, when we had our 30-year celebrations of Phonak, distributing Phonak, that I mentioned when we started, I said, Andy, I arrive on Friday. Can I invite you for dinner on Friday evening? On Saturday evening, because I want to be fresh. I have to focus. I have a mission. And he said, no, we're in Portugal. I said, oh, okay, well, I tried. Another friend took me out to a restaurant, and as we finished the meal, most expensive steak I ever had, 1,850 rand, but luckily I didn't pay, because I have no money, remember? And as we were about to leave, I felt a hand come around my neck, and I turned around, and here was Gertie, Andy's partner, and Andy standing behind her. And I said, I thought you guys were in Portugal. They said, no, we're flying tomorrow. It helps if you have your own citation jet, right? No, we're flying tomorrow. And we walked past the restaurant, saw you sitting here, and we thought we'll just come and say hello. I said, but come and have a glass of wine. And as they sat down, Andy said, what about the sports grounds? And I said, well, we've now started with the fencing in. It's still not on our name, but it's in process, and the city council said we can do the groundworks. He said, oh, that's great. He said, I want to help you. I want to send you somebody that can come and build and help you with a pump track. Pump track. I wanted to Google, what the hell is a pump track? Okay, pompbaan in Afrikaans. Doesn't rhyme. Something's wrong. A pump track and a mountain bike track. And he said, and you have to build a pool too. I said, no, I know, swimming is in our blood. I mean, my son is really a good underwater hockey, my grandson. So I said, money, it costs money. He said, I'll help you, I'll give you 1 million francs. 14 million rand. God working in the hearts of kings, he sends their thoughts like water in a furrow. And the money didn't come. But when I got back from Europe, Nico said, remember the 100 rand from Annabeth. And I said, wow, It reminded me of the little boy that came with the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes. What does he know? We've got to feed 5,000 people. Lord, here it is. What's in your hand? 5 loaves and 2 fishes. What's in your hand? 100 rand. Because with my God, I can do anything. He can do anything. And he multiplied the 100 rand 140,000 times to 14 million. Enough for us to start. The guys came, they built it, the pump track. Google eduplexsport.com or eduplexsport.co.za. Look at the pump track. It's a BMX, it's Africa's first and biggest asphalt BMX actually pump track. Look at it and you'll see, you'll learn something. And the mountain bike track, it's the biggest, one of the biggest inner city developments in the world. Because that's how God works. He does it just in a different way. On a bet, and then I'll close. We've run out of time. On a bet and appearance, the 29th of today, last year, Sir West came and we signed the contract. The 29th of August, they arrived on site with all their heavy equipment. We had to, all the fields, we had to lower 2 meters and lift it 2 meters. It was a huge job. Cut a long story short, on a bet and appearance, the 29th of August, they had a meal at the Spur, in Queenswood. And Christo, Dad, said, why don't we go down to the fields and go and pray for Nico, and please just don't call me but that's a different story. You can call me Nico. Let's go and pray for Nico and on the fields. They didn't know the money is not yet arrived. It's now months later. And they arrived. And they prayed. Nico wrote me, I flew that evening to London. The next morning, Nico said, on a bet and the parents went to pray on the fields. And I wrote her mother an email and said, thank you very much. And said, let me tell you the story. We went to the fields, we prayed, and as we finished praying, Annabeth, the back door opened and Annabeth got out. And she brought a little bottle of water from the Spur. She was now 9 years old and poured it out on the ground. She said, Mother said, what are you doing? She says, Mom, the Holy Spirit said I should pour this water out on the ground as a symbol of the water that's going to flow to keep the grass green. As a symbol of the water going to flow to keep the pool full, and as a testimony in the years to come of God's grace and miracles that He's performed here. 9 years old. I got back from Europe and we drilled. In Queenswood there's water at 20 meters. No problem. Water, if it rains, the water just comes out in fountains. We needed, I didn't even know that we needed 70,000 liters a day to keep the fields wet. We said, let's drill. 20 meters is a fact. 85 meters, our property manager phones me and says, must we stop? There's no water. There's 1,000 liters an hour. I cannot tell you the struggle in my head between what the Holy Spirit said through Annabeth and the facts that there's no water. I said, Mike, up to what depth did we pay for? What did they contract a tender on? He said 90 meters. I said, then we go to 90 meters and we stop. At 90 meters, we strike water that at that stage they said they think it's about 8,000 to 9,000 liters an hour. 2 weeks later, the contractor says, I think you have a little bit more water than what you think. I said, why? He said, we fill a 12,500 liter water tanker in 20 minutes. We then went down to the other. It's 1.5 kilometers as it runs against the mountain bike runs all the way to the fields in the eastern side, and we go and drill there. And at 135 meters, we only saw dust, and the guy on the opposite side of the road said, why don't you come and buy my house? I have a lot of water, and then you can just ray it over. Always somebody, if you have a vision, that wants to cash in on it. Said, stop. The drillman said to the contractor, I'm going to drill in the end of the grounds, if I may, and he erected that drill tower under the high tension wires, and I thought, now we're going to have a fried contractor as well. 20 meters he struck the first water 40 meters a second, we have more than 10,000 liters an hour there. I end by saying I have many stories more to tell you, but we've run out of time, and God is an amazing Father. But we need to have courage that as He guides us, as He leads us, as He gives us these promises, that we don't think too much about it, that we just do it, as Nike would say. Just continue, even if your knees are trembling. And it's amazing. Start with the first bowl of soup. Start with that first step, and God will bless you far beyond what you can think or dream or even pray for. But it's important. And remember, He puts an open door in front of each one of us. We can walk through in faith or turn away in fear. The choice is yours. And I'm going to ask Elfrida to just quickly come and give us an overview before we go through the school. She's also just going to show us a short video. What we do, what we do with the children. Is that okay, Ruan? I get nervous when you get up. And Elfrida is one of our audiologists at our audiological center. So, Elfrida, over to you. Have you got a mic? Oh, you've got one. Thank you.